Now let's turn our attention to a couple different aspects, not a couple, a number of different aspects about social development. And social development has its own rate of speed. The thing to keep in mind when we're talking about development itself, I seem to say that a lot, don't I? The thing to keep in mind. In social development and physical development, what you will see is, let's just say, for example, that this is physical. See how small I can actually write. This is cognitive. And then we add in social. And these are each streams of development, if you will. And where a kid actually develops is, like I said, is predetermined. The sequences are the same, the timing is different. So let's just say that a kid develops at this stage physically and cognitively may be lagging behind here, and socially may be here. And then as development continues in this direction, chronologically, if you will, is that physical may go here and then cognitive takes off and social is somewhere here. And my point is that this is an unequal developmental scale, and they go all at different rates, and depending on the kid and depending on their social environment and so forth. And that's key to understand when we talk about each of these different levels of development. We talked about physical, cognitive, now we're going to look at social. And what's pictured here is something we refer to as stranger anxiety. And ultimately, what you have to keep in mind is that in order to have anxiety, okay, I have to recognize that there's a difference. And so the cognitive development comes along, and as it does, then it impacts the social development, and physical impacts cognitive, and social impacts even physical because of the environment. So stranger anxiety begins to show itself beginning about 8 months, roughly. And it's not consistent. Like I said, timing's different, but the sequence is the same. And it's really soon after and connected to what we talked about earlier about object permanence. And kids develop the capacity to notice the differences in their environment, and they will greet strangers to them, by crying and reaching for their familiar caregivers and so forth. And that's all very much a part of the stranger anxiety. Oftentimes you will see this acted out in children's ministries when parents bring their kids in and leave them behind, and the kid is having a complete meltdown, and children ministry workers have to deal with stranger anxiety plus the object permanence aspect of it. The younger the child, when they're left by a caregiver, they are abandoned as far as they're concerned. The reality is they're not, but they don't know that. They haven't developed this object permanence, namely the permanence of the caregiver, and that they will come back. They can learn it, but kids vary in terms of how they do. Now, the other key concept here is something that falls in this category of attachment. And you will find throughout psychology that we will talk about attachment on a pretty consistent basis because of how it affects not only our social development, but also our spiritual development. Our attachment to God is often impacted by our attachment to other people. And so essentially kids can grow and develop this attachment bond with their caregivers, and familiarity provides a key to attachment itself. Now, a key person in this discovery is somebody by the name of Konrad Lorenz. And what he discovered was some of the concepts that lie in imprinting. And what he found is that there was a critical period during which animals imprint to whatever they find themselves near, if you will, which usually in most situations the parents are the first that animals imprint to because their parent is nearby. What Lorenz began to discover is that if he was nearby, and he has a fairly well-known experiment with goslings, baby geese, and he found that he could get them to imprint to himself, imprint to a bucket. They would imprint to whatever they saw at this critical period of time. Now, while humans don't imprint, they do what I've been referring to here as attachment. And in humans, that's what we're generally talking about, and we see a variety of attachment styles which play out not only in childhood but also play out in romantic attachments later on in life.
The special bond babies have with their parents is perhaps best illustrated by watching what happens when an infant is confronted with someone they don't know. This apprehension, known as stranger anxiety, begins at around 6 months when the baby's memory is beginning to mature and peaks around their first birthday.
Emma eventually got used to our cameras, but at first she wasn't sure quite what to do.
Well, hello. That's okay. You want to take off your hat and stay a while?
This apprehension has a biological advantage. Johnny looks like he's ready to go anywhere with anyone. But as he develops some wariness, he'll most likely shy away from unfamiliar people and keep a bit closer to home.
Often a baby will turn to their parents, their most trusted social partners, when confronted with a stranger. This social referencing gives the infant reassurance and clues about how to respond.